Welcome to Still, a podcast where we talk about anything that's not lame.
That's not lame. That's like, oh,
Right.
come back, Holger, come back. Yeah.
We are still lame though because we're still trying to figure out how to use microphones.
And speaking of lame, I'm Brandon.
Oh, and I'm Sierra.
And again, like you said, this is Small Talk is Lame, a podcast where we're going to talk about everything. Not everything. We can't do everything.
Not all at once. We're talking about, today, for instance, we're talking about relationships and communication between friends and significant others, whatever that might be.
Yeah, and significant others does not mean hookups. Or do you want to say hookups? Because my culture of communication and hookups is pretty lack of communication.
Yeah, I think so.
It's more like A, B, D. It's very fucking, very much like, yeah, we skip right over the C and go right to the D. And that's kind of what it is. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Gays are very, sometimes men of few words, but of many actions. That sounds really disgusting, but it's the truth. So, yeah. I think
you done with that, Ramble?
Yeah, I'm done with that. That was so. I got on a tangent, y'all. Because I feel like I always think like being gay is such a weird science. I'm like, it's really not. It's just what it is. But yeah, like dating, and I'm not married, but
no, but I am.
And yeah,
for 2 years now, almost. It'll be 2 years in May, I believe. If I'm not sorry if I'm not right. 2 years in May. Yeah.
I did not do this. So, to her significant other, her married partner, I didn't. Yep. Nope.
Well, okay. He thought we were married in April, and at least I know the month. I know the month. It's May because that's our dog's nickname. Our dog's name is Maddie, and her nickname is May May. And so we're like, oh, May, like it's easy. I did that on purpose, but I forgot the year, so I think it was 2 years.
Leave in the comments, guys, if you guys have funny ways to remember your significant anniversary milestones in your environments around you, because I think that's super cute.
Are you ready to hear the cheesiest thing ever?
Okay, so here we go. Let me get some crackers.
He didn't propose to me. I proposed to him.
That's not cheesy.
No, listen. I proposed to him on Christmas, so that I can't forget the fucking anniversary. When we proposed, and then when we got married, it's super easy because of our dog. Because we forget things so much. Like it's so difficult for both of us. I think we're a little on the spectrum or something. Like we can't remember shit. And so having an anniversary date, that's our dog's nickname, and then also on Christmas was like the proposal date. Super easy. Can't forget.
I mean, that's cute. Yeah. I don't think it's cheesy. I think it's. I mean,
really?
I'm not gonna put some brie on that one because that wasn't cheesy. So sorry. Okay. I think that's the cutest thing ever.
Okay.
But I love your logic behind it because you are very logical.
So. I have to make it work because if I don't, it's either just gonna be written down somewhere and I'll forget, or like I don't want to miss those things.
Well, true. I mean, and that's I think another key reason I wanted us to talk about communication in relationships in conjunction to marriage, dating, and like. We've talked about like intimate relationships and what that looks like, and we're not just talking about physical intimacy, we're just like people.
No, like emotional intimacy, intellectual intimacy. That's a different.
Which I think people do not think exists.
What?
I feel like people don't think intellectual like intimacy is only like I think sexually, and I'm like, is it though?
I mean, I think that's one way to use it, but like for instance, my best friend, who's also my ex. He and I have like complete intellectual intimacy with the way that we think and how we bounce ideas off of each other and how we communicate.
Right.
And when we communicate, just how it happens, and we're both very passionate, and that lines up. So I wouldn't know how to categorize that any other way.
Well, I think the key word that I think I picked up the most on is like when you talk about something like that and you use passion to help describe it. I think that's what solidifies intimate intellectuality, conflict. Like that's what ties it together. Because like if I'm not passionate in my conversation with someone that I'm supposed to have an intimate like connection with, no matter the scope of that or range of it, if there's no passion behind it, it can't be intimate. Just like we talked about how intimacy is not meant to be always made public.
Oh, okay.
So I think there's no intimacy without passion.
Yeah, I would say that those probably have to. Well, to an extent, I mean, you could say that there is, but I don't know if there actually is.
Yeah. To our viewers and subscribers, what do you guys think? Do you guys think intimacy is not fully expanded unless you have passion, or can you have it without passion? Which I just think is a hookup.
Those Yeah, they go hand in hand. I think
Like, or an
now.
acquaintance, or like a passerby, or like we love to call attention to small talk.
Oh yeah, and I was gonna say that kind of like is a almost like a negative feedback loop because we're constantly trying to sort of redefine what small talk could be, where you can create
Yeah,
those moments that are super super passionate and intense and have value. So
yeah,
I don't know.
and it's tricky.
That's interesting.
So yeah, so I guess I have been thinking. We had briefly introduced this, and we had made a post on. I had made a post on my
Yeah.
Facebook about like more some of the things that we wanted some of our future episodes and our season to feel like. And one of the things that got called out was like, talk about relationships and communication.
Yeah.
So
Everyone wants to hear about that.
I mean, I've been watching these very interesting posts about people who are looking for certain partners in a relationship, friendship, or whatever.
Okay.
And the ways that some of these boards or panel of people who are trying to help navigate the narrative in that are talking about it, I mean, like, it's an internal dialogue first. Like, you're seeking what was one of them? Like, one of the questions that I heard was, how do I deal with a man more sensitive than me in a relationship?
Oh.
And then the response was, how would you expect that person, if they can't be sensitive or soft or vulnerable, and you find that as an irritation or an obstacle, in the relationship, that should be the safest place for them in a romantic relationship for them to feel like that. And if that person is in their world without you battling how to, like, maybe their exterior isn't vulnerable, maybe their exterior isn't, soft or sensitive, but with you, they are, I think, it's almost like, well, you're not allowing that part that they give you in a relationship to exist. So how is that communication or lack of communication inhibiting
Mm.
the connection? And is that also a red flag for you to be like, well, maybe I'm not the right person for this person?
Yeah. So there's a couple things actually. The first thing I noticed is you sort of interchangeably used sensitive and vulnerable.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case. That's very different because
Okay.
someone can be sensitive and not be vulnerable at all. Someone
True.
can be because you might not even know someone is sensitive because they might have a crazy poker face
Like
and
you,
they're
just you have a
oh
crazy
that's
poker
do
face.
I really
Because like we talk about it,
well
people may not know if you're being like, it's like it. What? Is
okay
she?
sure
Like, and for me, people are like, Brandon, what's wrong? I can read it all over your face. And when before I changed careers and switched into entrepreneurship, I worked around people with like all the time. And my biggest sense of biggest feedback of, like, constructive feedback, or just being like, Brandon, are you okay? Or I kept getting this question of like, Brandon, are you okay? Or Brandon, we don't know what we're walking into when we see you sometimes.
oh just because
And
you're very expressive
because of my overly, like, you can read my face when I was just kind of like, this is the stupidest fucking conference call, or like, if you don't
oh
shut
okay
the fuck
so you
up.
needed a poker face
So I needed to develop a poker face. So I could be like,
and just have it all going on up here.
I'm literally thinking I want to claw your eyes out, but you're never gonna know. But
Oh, that's very much me. But okay, so the difference between sensitivity and vulnerability, that's a big hoop to jump through. But
True.
then you also said, oh, back up. God, what was it? Can't remember.
but either way,
Too long.
either way, I think you're right. I think they're not exclusive and they're not partners. They're just kind of
Oh,
like,
there it is.
they're like two separate worlds that can wave to each other from each other by like, hey, remember when we used to spend time together? But we're not twins.
I think the unequally yoked. That's what it was. So
Yeah.
if you have two people that are, it's just too far apart.
Yeah.
Then that probably doesn't work. But I think you do need a balance, though. It's not good, in my opinion, to have two like the same. If you have both of the same, especially think if you're both crazy, you know what I mean? Like think having
That's
two
fine.
having two crazy,
Yeah.
basically, in a yeah, two crazy people is not going to be good. Two Spocks might be good, I guess, maybe, but like it's going to be kind of boring. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like you need to have a little bit of that in between for both. But when they're just too far apart, then you guys don't have anything in common, or if you do, it's just going to create conflict.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to sort of complement each other.
So I guess to the essence of the episode. Like, how would you communicate in that situation? Like, how would you talk? How would you bring up maybe that awareness or opportunity about like, I've noticed this and I want to communicate that to somebody.
What I do, I think what I do is anytime I feel like maybe there's something, uh, like if we're talking about something, and
Yeah.
I feel like maybe what I'm getting across is not quite clear or it's not getting perceived in the way that I expected it to,
Hmm.
I'll sort of pause and go, hey, I don't think maybe I communicated my point clearly enough with you because the way that you're responding doesn't like that. I'm a little confused. So let me restate what my intentions were and then ask the question again. Like it's very from a like a questioning place. I never assume that they're taking it wrong or that you know what I mean. Like there's
Yeah.
always that questioning aspect to it. Like maybe that was my fault. Maybe I was all over the place, which
Right.
happens very frequently, as you heard earlier.
I mean, I think, but I feel like, and I think I talked about this when we were off camera. Like sometimes my passion in conversation can come off as like arrogance or cocky,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm like,
Oh, sorry,
no,
not my intent.
no, no, not intent. And
Yeah.
then I kind of redial back into how I was communicating
Yeah.
when I start to get that vibe. So, I think we both kind of communicate the same way when it comes to like, are you? I'm reading. I'm communicating with you, but I'm also trying to, kinetically like
Yeah.
communicate with you because if you start giving me body language where I'm like, they are not
And I'm
interested.
quick to point that out.
Like next thing you know, you're not making eye contact, or I'm getting a lot of closed-ended answers
Yeah.
and or questions, and now I'm like, wait, the essence of this was not that. And the one thing that I learned recently, and I've heard it, but I never put it into practice until recently, of like before you start any type of conversation or communication, you have to be like, what's the goal?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Mel Robbins said this. She talks a lot about like just this kind of stuff. And if you don't listen to her or follow her, I think she's a great like the High Five Habit, My Second Role. She does really good stuff with that. But one of the things she did talk about was just kind of like, when before you have to have difficult conversations as you're trying to change your life, you're gonna have difficult conversations. What's the goal? What's the end goal? Like if you don't have an end goal in a difficult or any type of conversation, it's gonna go all over the place.
Yeah.
So I feel like for me, in any relationship conversation that I have, I always have to be like, Brandon, why are you bringing this up? Like, what's the goal? Because what if you don't achieve the goal in the first conversation? What if you have to take a step back? What do you have to reevaluate?
Sometimes you might not even know it. Like it sort of comes. I like that you use the phrase "comes up" because that's especially for people who don't necessarily keep tight tabs on their emotional states and their mental states.
Or our favorite word, ego.
Yeah, things just tend to come up and they come out, and it's not thought through. So when you do that, it's good to take a step back and be like, okay, did that need to come out? Period. Do I just need to sit on that for a little bit? Do I need to think? Does
or
the
am
other
I
person
even ready to like have
Yeah.
a conversation like this? Am I mentally prepared? Because I can't predict what they're going to say back to me, but I have to be ready and emotionally prepared because it may or may not be in alignment to what I'm assuming
Yeah.
the conversation is going to be or the communication dialogue is going to be. But I used to be afraid of that, which is why I was like a people pleaser.
Oh. Or, at the very least, if you're unsure and you don't
Yeah.
want to sit idle by where you're trying to sort that out, you could approach the person and be like, hey, I'm all over the place. This came up and I need to hash it out. And you can just be clear about what exactly is going on. Even
Right.
if you don't exactly know what it is, you can state that as such and be like, all right, I don't know what's going on completely. I have this and this and this on my mind that came up, and I want to sort through a couple of these things. There might be some more that comes out. Sorry. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like that's super acceptable.
So yeah, and I give an example in a relationship starting process or a connection with someone,
Yeah.
in whether it was transitioning from friendship to something more serious or whatever the case may be. I had clearly stated like, okay, I called it out. I was like, I don't feel like there's more going on than just small talk. And it wasn't even like small talk that led into being, oh, we can leave this island and go into the island of actual connection and conversation or community, like, or sense of camaraderie. It just kept staying in this lane. Sometimes when you have friends, that you've been friends with for like multiple years.
They have tracks.
Yeah,
They
that,
tracks.
or all you do is talk about the fucking past, and you're like, oh my god, if we talk about what we did 20 years ago one more time, I'm going to stab myself in the face. But sometimes that's how I've learned that that's how you don't outgrow your friends. I think you just, the season of your connection has changed to where it was always summertime with certain friends. It's always summertime. And then other times, this is just like winter where you hibernate and, buckle down and it's layered and it's cold and it's more like straight ahead, head down, no wind chill.
Right.
And I've been okay with that. But that's in those friendships. New friendships, like for example, the one that we talked about in the last a few episodes ago, where I have a digital friend.
Yeah.
We have not met, but we're super close and we talk about everything. And we had a moment where I was like, I need to call this out. And I feel like, not, and even he was like, am I complaining too much? I'm like, no, but like, you aren't providing yourself the solutions that we develop in these conversations. So we just keep cycling over it. So until
at some point we gotta
and then it's almost like this goes into all this other stuff, like boundary building and da 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 da. But ultimately, I wasn't afraid to be like, hold on, let me call this out. But how I did it was in a way of saying, hey, I took an opportunity when they said, am I complaining too much? Versus me being like, I'm sensing that you're complaining a lot. You know what I mean?
Well, do you ever have those times where you have to take a step back and go, are you looking for just a place to vent for a second, or do you want a solution? Because that changes my listening.
I can't reference to that, but I have had to check myself of being like, I don't need to be present in the wisdom version of this conversation because you're not asking me for it.
Yeah.
So I don't need to always have that ready to go for somebody.
Are you kidding? I live by that. I'm solution driven, so when someone comes,
same. But then I had to learn that some people aren't ready for the solution driven approach. Some people aren't prepared. Some people aren't even interested. Just like I don't always have to help my friends who talk about problems with me. I don't always have to be that person who's like, I'm going to. I don't have to show up for them in that way. I've just said my one rule now is like, and I took it from Simon Sinek, is like, my friends don't cry alone. That's one of my big rule now. It's like, if you're my circle of concern, if you're my inner circle, if you're my tribe, my one thing that I always tell my friends to not feel like, is like, don't cry alone. And know that when we're together, or if you're engaging with me, or you're being vulnerable or exposed with me, I'm not going to make you stop crying. I'm not going to talk you out of crying. I'm going to let you have that emotion because that's what you need right now. And sometimes we've been so accustomed to be like, oh, no, don't cry. And I'm like,
well, did you know that's actually like a certified thing that grief counselors aim at? Like it's not just a personal preference. Like that's actually the right thing to do. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that because I realized, and it was only because how it was presented to me. I was like, oh my god, I've been the person when I've been trying to be the solver or the solution oriented, or like the cheerleader, the pep talker.
Right.
I've always like, no, don't feel, and I'm like, wait a second, that's the opposite of what I'm trying to do for them. So maybe I'm also enabling them, resisting their situation, resisting the opportunity for the pain or the reflection or whatever. Like, if you're angry, be angry. I will support you in that emotion. So how I communicate that, how I communicated my curiosity, question, and maybe even validation of like, where is this at? Because I don't want to be all over the place with people. Like, I mean, we're past the guess my age, so like I'm 40 now. Like I don't I don't have time. Like I mean, we all have time, but I've chosen not to give time to that type of process in dating anymore because I've learned and I've chosen to learn from previous mistakes, red flags, opportunities, failed relationships, whatever the case may be. But like, when you know the type of core status foundation of where you're at in a relationship, I haven't stopped pursuing people based on how they started communicating themselves to me. Because, when I hear things like, I'm shy, I'm quiet, I'm strange, or like, I'm just weird and that's just me. And I'm like, I get that and I totally respect that. But now I just know how to invest my time. And that's okay. Like maybe you just get moved to the friend zone and that's super, super okay. But when I'm looking for a romantic partner, there are certain attributes that are going to be stronger and more connective to me versus a settlement of behavior versus a success of behavior, like
Yeah.
syncing that the whole thought process. So for me, I communicate it in the ways that I've realized that are beneficial to me and the relationships that I want to attract versus the relationships that present themselves to me. I think
That
that's
makes
a big
sense.
thing that I've tried to really, really do now.
I think my biggest thing, if we're gonna talk about like evolution of relationships as they've gone from like younger to now, my biggest change I think would be caring more about making sure that we are a little bit more equal on how we live our life. Because that was something I thought, yeah, I didn't realize how difficult that could make things if you just have two different lifestyles. I thought maybe there would be like, I can do me, they can do them. We can come together in certain areas and it's okay if we're different. Like my unequally yoked distance was too far and I needed to
Yeah.
bring it closer together. And then I've been able to hammer out some of those stables. So
And then how did you like you communicated and recognized that to yourself and you talked to yourself through it, but
mhm.
how did you then express that reality as you're watching that like we need to be here?
To be honest, I didn't have a chance to actually. There was one relationship in particular where that was a hard pivot for me, and that was the one right before I met my husband.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not met him, but because we had met before that, but started dating my husband.
Mm-hmm.
So I left that previous relationship, and that was because we were just too far apart, to put it simply. And then I met my husband a long time ago in the Navy, so we knew of each other, but we just weren't in the same realm for a while. Like we had mutual friends, and it just
The
kind of
universe was not ready for you two to
yeah.
merge yet.
But right after that, pretty much like I would say 6 something months after that relationship ended, he popped in again, and it was like okay, cool, and we lined up so much. And after coming from that to this new one, it was just like wow, this is so much different. I see where I was going wrong, and so what I do is if there's something that's going well, I point it out.
Yeah.
Always, always, always.
It's so okay. It's so funny that you just said that. So, I'm actively dating, and the person, one of the people that I'm dating, and I'm not like dating thousands of people. There was like a
But
tunnel
it's none of your business
it,
anyway.
and even it was, but the one that's leading the race, I would say, we had the same experience. We met
Hmm.
and like maybe attempted and tried like a sync of dialogue and connection to see
Hmm.
like there was like of course there was like physical attraction and like
Sure.
a vibe and like a wavelength, but then it just was like it just kind of like it just
No,
like
it's separated
flatlined.
for a little bit.
Yeah, and it flatlined.
Oh, okay.
And it was just kind of like, and I was like, what? Huh? What? Huh? What? And then, like, I would say, like, almost
Mhm.
a year,
Oh wow.
maybe a year and a half had gone by, and they've, like, recently just reappeared. And the difference in who we are as people has legitimately, I was like, wow, this is the difference between this is where you see growth. This is how you see your new communication style. This is how you
But was
see
it you or was it them?
it's both of
Oh,
us.
it was both. Okay.
Like we both brought this difference of how we approached each other. And even for me, I wanted to get clearer sooner of like what like I'm picking up this vibe, but I'm like I want to make sure that this is the vibe because if it's not the vibe, that's cool. I'm super down. But like I've been here before, and it was like that flat line, even if it was a short second thought process, it was still effective and like, oh, that fucking sucks. And
Yeah. So if
as,
that's gonna happen again,
yeah,
let's figure that
yeah,
out now.
I want to assess so I know what kind of range, so that way
Mhm.
I know my emotional investment capacity with you. Because once it hits the ceiling, that's all you get. And sorry, kid, that's all,
Right.
tough niggas. But in this case, we were able to and still able to not only surprise ourselves by our responses to that question, but even just in our current behaviors and cycle of like getting to know each other more and things like that. So like I'm like,
It's pretty
interesting.
cool.
It is pretty cool, but I also think it's one of those things like we talked about is like how we communicate in our space now what we rely on as accurate forms of connection and what we no longer find acceptable to communicate in. Like, I'm not going to just text you and think that's enough. I'm not going to just send you an emoji and I think that's enough. I'm not going to just Facebook bug you and think that's enough in a relationship type of bond, even in friends. Like, we are going to check in and have a conversation, and I'm going to be genuinely concerned, present, and, validating in the life that you're trying to have and my exposure to that. Like, I want that to be what we're all about. And if you're my new friend or old friend, I'm trying to pull all of those things back together. So for me, it's not like everybody do what I do or everybody like follow this, follow the still lifestyle. Like, it's more like, hey, I want to give this an approach for me and my process of being like, oh yeah, I remember when we didn't have this, and I miss those kind of thoughts, connections, and conversations.
Well, that's exactly why I reconnected
Yeah.
and with my ex, who was my best friend, because we both genuinely missed that connection with each other, that intellectual thing that we had going, whatever you want to call it. I still don't know, but it was so good that when we had to step away from that, it
That
was just
passion. I mean, it's just
yeah,
passion. Like that
hmm
passion amongst two people who just get it, who
yeah,
get each other. And there's this guy. I keep referencing social media because again, that's just the space that I find a lot of, at least for me, and I don't know about anybody else, but I've learned to listen and trust that for me, social media and how I use it is to maintain the environment of my personal development, personal growth, inspiration, motivation, and focus.
yeah. I mean, if it's not that, it's got to be books or
Or that. So for me, all of my feed is like building a better business, being a better leader,
yeah,
being a better person, or trusting yourself, or loving yourself, like all that. That's what mine is about. There's an occasional hot guy in there here or there, but like most of it, 90% of it, is literally driving me forward in my own journey, in my own business journey, personal journey, all
which
that.
can be difficult for someone coming in and does not have that momentum in their life. And
Ooh.
when you go like that, and then they're just like, when if you cross paths, it can be really uh, striking.
I feel like I'm in that space right now. Like I literally just had like a moment like that where there is literally silence. Like they have not responded when I literally was like, okay, that's cool. If that's how you see yourself and things like that, that just gives me a good space to know how to emotionally invest and communicate with you.
Yeah. Well, if they're doing this and you're way up here, you can't.
And
It's hard to crisscross.
I'm in that space and I'm
Yeah.
curious to see what happens. So stay tuned, guys, because I don't know.
Well, there's a couple things that can happen. That person can either rise to the occasion,
Or fall off.
or fall off. Yeah. There's
I
no.
feel like they're on the. I think they're like holding on with one finger and they're just ready to be like.
Well, with some people, I feel like because I don't know if I've been told this or I've just got this vibe from people, but I feel like people think that's really aggressive and it's a little bit short. Like my friend Ashley, my bestie, she was really put off by me. I feel like at the beginning and heard all kinds of like bad things about me from other people, and she tentatively gave me the chance so that she could form her own opinion about me on her own,
Mhm.
which was awesome. And then once she started to get to know me, she was like, "All you guys just doing gossip are a bunch of bitches. She's cool." But that intensity that people like us bring to the table for people who are not traveling at that same trajectory with intensity can be really off-putting.
And I feel like I've learned to not settle and diminish my communication style
Yeah.
to validate this.
Oh,
Like,
never.
but see,
That doesn't even occur to me.
but see, and I love how we talk. Like we've talked about this off the air all the time, where she and I clearly, like, I have been a person who's like, when it comes to connecting with people, like I will try to match their wavelength to get them to like sync with me.
Oh, no.
You are not that.
That takes too much energy.
It does.
Man.
As I have now realized, it takes a lot of energy to be a chameleon in conversation. And I just realized how much energy I've saved by I mean, okay, so I got this. A lot of my friends tell me this, but then the one of the guys that I'm dating, he was just kind of, you use a lot of words.
You do.
And I do. And now that I've actually started practicing using less words, like I think I texted him yesterday and he was just kind of like, you really, and he was like, he likes to reference like our zodiacs.
Sorry, yeah.
But he's like, Sages, you want to be a Sag so bad because he's very like it's like, how was your day? 4 words only. Like, but in those 4 words, I totally know what kind of day he had. Me, it's a paragraph. And he's like, you love them more.
There's a time and a place for that though, because I'd be writing novels to people sometimes, and that needs to happen. But sometimes, like time and a place, man, you gotta read the air. I don't know.
Yeah,
read the air.
And for me, and so far, my oxygen mask was always full of lots of words. So I think it was for me to take mine off and breathe in the natural air, because this fake air that I was breathing in just had a lot of fucking fog in it. And everyone was like, could you just simplify this, please? So I've gotten better, and I'm trying to get better. And I think also having a podcast where you can't be talking for hours.
Oh, yeah.
Helps.
You know what's funny, though? You have to kind of learn that when you're in the military, because you're on comms all the time. And when you're in like those high stress situations, especially like actually specifically for sonar technicians, it's actually written into their, what would you call that? Like an SOP, which is standard operating procedure. Yeah. So you're only allowed to use the minimum amount of words possible, and some of them actually have rules, no more than 12 words. And you have to be able to communicate. We have a target coming in from this direction, going this speed, headed this trajectory. They have this on board. We want to do this, permission to do that, and you have to get all that out.
And 12
something like that.
12 characters, so to speak.
Well, yeah, and you have to train, and you get assessed on that. And if you go over, then your ship doesn't like if you don't make the criteria, your ship won't certify. You can't deploy. Like really is like you won't leave the dock kind of thing.
It was like do it or die.
Yeah, like there would be no ships deployed if sonar techs couldn't communicate like that.
Can't.
I'm not even joking. Like,
I totally believe you. That's the part that I'm like, this is why to this day I'm like, I would have made a terrible.
You would have learned a lot.
I would have learned a lot, but it would have
it would have been hard.
Yes, I'm the person, and I no longer down myself, but I'm like a hard head. Like learn the hard way, because for me, you can tell me till you blue in the goddamn face. I will be like, Jack, you need to let me go and freeze to the bottom for me to be like to figure it out. Like,
sometimes.
Some things. Yeah. But like when it came to connection and conversations and just like confidence and stuff. No, I had to learn the hard way. I had to fail. I had to be manipulated. I had to be destroyed, shattered. I mean, I had to go through some shit to be like,
Well, you know what the funny thing is?
Never again.
For me, I was able to keep all of those really healthy communication habits alive in a professional sense.
Yeah.
And then it just went to shit whenever I tried, or rather, I never applied it well enough to a relationship. But I had all of the knowledge and the know-how and the tools and the experience, like the years and years and years of experience doing it professionally and properly.
Doesn't that suck when you realize that? Like, I'm recently realizing how long I sat in my own dysfunction because I was not using the tools that I investigatively sought out to say, oh, how do you talk to people? How do you deal with this? Being a better leader. How do you communicate leadership? Personally and professionally. I had all this fucking shit up here, but you put me on stage and I'm like, line,
please.
Yeah. And then I was like, but I learned to stop in those scenes or those environments and being like, oh, okay. I remember that this is how I need to address the situation. Because that's not a waste of time. That wasn't just like, like an image of me reading these books and getting this information.
You have to adopt those principles. You have to see them as principles too. Because sometimes this happens where people go through a situation and they find a way to get through it. And like, okay, cool, I found a cheat code, or I found the solution. I found a way around the obstacle. And then they're presented with the same issue in a slightly different way in a different relationship, and they can't see it's related. And so then you take that, and unless you extract the principle out of whatever that was, you won't be able to put it somewhere else. And that's hard, especially if you have like trauma or grief around.
You remember last episode, we worked really hard in the conflict conversation and we talked about it.
Yeah.
This is one of those things that conflict and communicating in a relationship or a friendship or a partnership or whatever, communicating any type of thing that's more intense than just like a stranger or getting to know someone,
probably, yeah.
That right there is paramount, at least for me personally, because I'm about to be walking back into a reality where I'm like, fuck, I did that. I would correct one moment, but I wouldn't pull the principal.
Yeah.
Because
It's hard.
then the next scene would happen, and I'm like, this is the same fucking shit. This is, okay, so this was a hat you were wearing. Now you're wearing a blouse doing the same goddamn shit. Oh, look, now you got a skirt on doing it. I'm like,
Yep. You have to be able to.
your wardrobe of wonder in our relationship is terrible. So please, like, can we just take that and throw it out? Because, but I need to recognize that it's not the hat that you're wearing or the skirt. It's the whole ensemble, their whole collection of this. I love how I made it all about clothing because I'm in that space in my career. But that's what it was. It totally worked. See, that's why I'd like to claim that I'm really good at metaphors. But so far with me and Sierra, I've bombed.
That was a pretty good one.
I super bombed. If this was like my big sister and I, we'd be like taking them out. But here with you and I can't seem to. But I think I'm getting my rhythm now because that was pretty good.
That was pretty good.
And you were like, Brandon, that's not how you use the word.
Well, that was a different setup completely.
But still, like I used to be like, oh yeah, and you're like, no.
Well, you just gotta get. I'm making you better at your metaphors because
You
now
are making me better at my metaphors.
You're doing the right words. This time.
I'm doing the right words in the right
Context.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Just all of it makes sense now. You're like Brandon, I don't want to disturb you. I will join you. You're
so creative though, and it's hard because I was just thinking probably about 10 minutes ago you made a metaphor, and I was like, oh, that went over my head. I got to think about that while he's still talking, and I hope I don't lose his train of thought. I was like, what do you mean? Shit, because I don't want to just stop you every time you do that. But it's like you're creative, and I'm sure it made sense in your head, but.
It does. But sometimes those don't come out right.
Nope.
It's almost like you're like, that wasn't a fart. Like, sorry. Like, whoops.
Oh man. On the brown couch.
On the brown couch. I'm wearing jeans for the first time in a while. It's crazy. Which I don't wear jeans. I hate jeans. I hate jeans so much. And
you see, I'm always in these like athleisure bullshit.
She's super comfortable, but you
just came from a fancy lunch thing, whatever.
Yeah, I did.
I did not. I came from my couch in my kitchen making soup, so.
That's fancy. It's fancy.
I guess,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's fancy. It's fancy. But you're married, so you have to put it on. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know if that's the right way to go about it. I dress up when we have to. We do our things.
I'm waiting to be devastated when I see her like dolled up. I
hate that. Actually.
I might die.
I never wear makeup. I don't own a piece of makeup at all. I own skincare, and that's about it. I do my hair because my hair is kind of testy. But
when we get a producer, I want that comment repeated, and I want to zoom in because yeah.
What?
Bitch is flawless.
Well, okay, that's not what I don't know. I don't wear makeup because I have sensitive skin. It makes me break out. It's really, really bad. I can't ever find any kind of product that doesn't give me acne. And I don't have acne when I don't wear makeup. And so, that's a no-brainer. I can't wait for someone to comment about that specific statement. Because we're going to be on social media. So someone's like, well, I hate this! I can't wait. I'm really curious. Hey, you know what? That's cool. Do you. But also, I have freckles, and that's hard. It's either a completely full coverage foundation, where you can't see the freckles, in which case I don't look like me. I look like some crazy fucking doppelganger. Have you ever thought about that? Taking the freckles off of somebody? As I'm trying to do it in my head, I'm trying to do it to you. It is a scary experience. Right. So I don't want to. Because they're everywhere. It's not just it's everywhere. I'm a redhead where the hair didn't catch on. Did everyone get she just did a full They are. They're everywhere. Right. I pulled the boob out. But okay, so it's either full coverage and they disappear, or you do some half-ass shit where they look half covered, and then I just look crusty, and it's that's not a look. I don't like it. So check out a new foundation, half-ass crusty. I'm sorry, for freckles only. Yeah, for freckles only. Oh, I'm dead. No, but it's just a pain in the ass, and it's a lot of money. And you know what? Do you? But I'm telling you, the word pictures that I just had validate all of you. Yeah, exactly, right? So yeah, just
you with like a picture with you with long hair. I think I only saw you in a ponytail. I was like, that's not you.
It didn't feel like me.
Well,
I hated my hair. Well, until I got this hair. This hair is
I like,
fantastic.
she did a head wiggle. She did a bobblehead wiggle. I love her. She's like,
yeah.
it's my hair moving. And I'm like,
It doesn't have a whole lot of product in it,
Yeah.
so it still wiggles. But when I had long hair, I never knew what to do with it, and it was just
so
shit.
long in a ponytail.
Yeah, it was always in a ponytail because when I was acting, it was always done. You can't go into an audition with just crazy ass kid hair. It's either in pigtails, in braids, in a bun, in a something. Well, not for boys, but like for girls, whatever. And all the girls in Hollywood at that time when I was coming up, it was that Jennifer Aniston look where they had pin straight hair down to their ass, and it's like that wasn't me. Sorry. So it was always Pippi Longstocking or some shit like with my hair. It was nuts, and I hated it. And my mom kind of
I think my mind just had to like break for it. I was like, what? That's not thing.
I know, but my mom had to grin and bear it and be like, okay, this is what the producers are asking for. This is what they want. And she would just apologize and say, honey, we have to do your hair. I'm sorry. This is what they need. And she would, I had a really sensitive head too. So brushing my hair.
We talked about that and you were just kind of like.
Right. Exactly. So when I got out of acting, I actually like cut it all the way to a bob. And I colored it. Because I was.
As a fuck you to this.
Yeah, because you couldn't fix your hair. I don't know if you understand about that, but the only time you can change your look when you're an actor is if you have the money to update your headshots. That was before cell phones existed, where you had to go to a professional photographer and you were at the whim of their pricing. Yeah. So as a kid, as an up and rising kid with another sibling and only one parent working, who the fuck has money for that? Yeah. So you can't change your look at all.
So it's like that's it.
Like even if you lose a tooth, you have to get a flipper. Or you have to like it's like you'll lose jobs over missing a tooth when you're a kid.
I've lost jobs now. And funny story about that, and I think we can get back to that topic.
Oh, sorry, yeah, we totally
but like, sometimes appearance is a bitch. Like, and a part of me, and we can talk about this in a different episode. A different episode. But yeah, like appearance and self-esteem used to be big fucking killers. But
that tied back to my previous relationship before my husband, because that person, not that my self-esteem is the responsibility of someone else, but they they didn't help at all. No. And then they didn't take too much pride in their image either.
I stopped dating someone for that critical thought process either. Yeah. It's like, I can psychoanalyze you all day long, but I will not be criticized for finally embracing all of my external and external expressions, like the rings and the nail. Like, sorry.
Oh, that too. Okay, I was thinking about like physique.
Oh, same. But I feel like that. But that's also part of the physique. Like, I finally like, yeah, I look good. I don't care. Like, I look like me. How you think I look good? No, I don't care. But I can look in there and be like, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
I'm still country me. But just in my experiences, like where you talked about, like, I think I'm gonna get a ghoster. I think he's gonna legit ghost me. Yeah, I think so, because I think a person who's like, I'm quiet and I'm shy, which I'm totally fine with, but like,
is that I'm quiet and I'm shy and I need you to pull it out of me, and it's gonna be like that for the rest of our relationship?
Which is one thing that I was like, nope, not doing that anymore. Like you're 30 something years old, close to 40, and I'm 40, and what
game are we playing?
Well, first of all, this should not be a game. And, I heard something like, people were like, relationships should be easy.
No, they're not. Well,
they should be easy.
But they take work.
Yeah.
There's effort.
Easy, they should be effortless, or like, effortless means that you didn't do anything to get it. So easy is just kind of like, well, then is it a relationship then? Because it's not.
No. Yeah, actually, that's so funny that you say that, because that's the exact thing that broke us up, that last relationship. Uh-huh. And he said it, and I was in a traumatized state where that didn't quite level out until I started with a healthy relationship with my husband.
Yeah.
But he said it, and he was a toxic one, which is the ironic part. But he was like, yeah, relationships aren't supposed to be this hard. They're supposed to be easy. And that was
gas. It's a relationship.
Well, no, but I think what he was getting at in a backwards way, where he was right about it, but he was always a dick, the way that he would bring it up, and like, you know what I mean? It's like he hit the.
So you don't even try to listen to your.
No.
Oh, that's what I was also mention. Like, in communication, I think you need to also determine the dialogue style between the two people involved. I'm not like how we talk is not how I'm going to talk to like that person that I'm just meeting. Actually, that's a lie. Actually, no, that's not a lie. I'm not going to sit there and be like, I don't know. I guess I need to ponder on this one more.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about.
Like,
how different is it really?
Yeah, because when you finally establish like your communication style or your confidence in how you communicate or how you like present yourself and then talk,
it's not different for me.
Well, yes, clearly.
Yeah.
It's so not. Like you are like from the moment we met to now, it's the same style. Mm-hmm. And it's all it has done. All it has done is evolve into channels of topics and trajectories of how well we know each other.
Yeah.
Within that style. And that's kind of what I'm like, huh. It's not. I don't have to be a chameleon in conversation.
Like, no, because I'm consistent, so yeah. you can do
our connection has shown me that it's so important that you don't have to try to fucking fit in with everybody.
No.
And you don't have to try to make it a priority when you get into a situation. So when I guess what we also like to do here is like the call to action around certain things. It's like I think, the next time any of us go into a public setting and things like that, and we already have like a really good communication with friends and family, and we know what that communication looks like, and it makes you feel the most empowered and confident, keep it. Like,
oh, that's not how I go about it.
I feel like a person who's never done it, that's how I go about it. Okay. Because you already know, and you've already seen the success and filtration system that comes with how you communicate. Because people probably don't like the moment they probably hear you talk or engage with a person, they're like, I can't fuck with her.
Well, I don't know. I honestly have no clue. I'm a little,
which is probably, but I'm telling you as an observer of how like when we met, before we met, I think I heard you talk and communicate once, and I was like, yeah, she ain't about that bullshit. Like, she ain't about that BS. And then when we briefly went from like, hey, it was definitely different, but you still were like, not on the bullshit.
No, yeah,
I'm not on the bullshit. Like, it wasn't like an aggressive like I'm closed off and I have closed body language of like don't talk to me.
I used to when I was a teenager. It was so bad because I didn't know how to.
We don't know shit like that. Like
well, no, I'm being honest though. That was so the way that I would communicate very much was expressed on the outside when I was a kid, and I was not I was bullied when I was like really little, like grade school-ish. But But then as I was like a teenager, you were saying you were always the chameleon. I was always the outsider. So I feel like I developed my form of communication strictly because I was always on the outside. I got very comfortable being on the outside, and instead of being like me, like no one wants to be friends, I was just like, okay, that's fine.
I feel like so I feel like I in middle school had to communicate with people in connections or whatever like that. Not like a chameleon. I was the outsider, and I only had one connective identifier, which was like me being an artist, and like I sketched and doodled and did creative stuff that people were like always curious about. But then when I got into like middle school and high school, then I became the chameleon. That when I tried to fit in my own ways, like, oh, Brandon's a funny guy. Well, I'm funny in this group, or I'm the artsy one in this group, and I am the this in this group, instead of just being all of that, no matter what. Oh yeah, that's serious.
Oh, that's tiring.
Yeah, just like this is gonna be a little sad, but like I had a lot of bouts of depression and then suicide attempts and and in that I was like, there was one time when I was like in my 20s, life was really hard and I got really sad and blah blah blah, and I tried to take my life. And I am not diminishing that, so that's when I say like blah blah blah. It's not like a
just
joke.
Glossing over for the public content.
And the other thing too about it is, at that time I had like a big social circle, and when that all happened, and then after it happened, you know what I mean? You're thinking all this chameleon style behavior at least left some type of like signature among the people that you wanted to care for you or care about the trauma and the depth. And we won't go into like what I think about like what happens to people who have to endure the scare and the news and the whatever of like hearing that your friend is in this kind of pain or trauma that you didn't know about. But I will say that, you know, it is quite the eye opener about how I presented and communicated myself to other people. Of being like, no wonder nobody knows me, or no wonder nobody showed up, or no wonder nobody like gravitated towards the seriousness of it. Because
Well, can you imagine if you hadn't had that realization, and then if
like
if someone, well, yeah, if someone can't come to that realization, and then that's a real fast downward spiral. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's
and I feel like and you know, these will be other things that we'll talk about later in the season, and if not in other seasons, is that, you know, when you start to realize in your own relationships and in the relationship you have with yourself and how you talk to yourself, because I feel like that's really important. I feel like and there's so much stuff that I've read about, like the first conversation in any type of connection is the one that you have with yourself. Because if you cannot talk to yourself in a way to make yourself feel safe, loved, validated, heard, expressed, whatever, how truly are you allowed to get that out of other people? Like if I haven't,
because it's hypocritical.
Yeah, I feel like, especially now, even in our exchange, it's like if I didn't bring my authentic self to our connection,
we wouldn't be doing this.
We would not be doing this.
No, 100%.
And it would have never been known that this was something that we would totally gravitate towards if I wasn't being authentic. So I had to check in with me and be like, Brandon, you need to start carrying yourself exactly as you are. So that means your expression of style, expression, creativity, all that shit does not diminish because you're in a different setting.
Yeah.
Like, and I would literally, sometimes I would change my outfits to adapt to the environment that I was assuming I needed to fit into.
Mm-hmm.
And now, as you see how I'm dressed now, I'm like, I don't give shits.
Right.
Like,
I think that has a time and a place, but maybe not in the way that you were expressing it.
Yeah. Oh, there's something like we talked about earlier. I'm like, I ain't gonna go to the worst, bigoted, hating, homophobic place and be like this and expect to not be poked at. But I'm not gonna shrink myself either.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna be smart and be like, I don't need to be in those places because they don't support the reality that I exist in.
Or you could and just
be like, fag, thank you so much. I'm so glad you got
I prefer that. Because I don't like we're getting a little off topic, but I don't like the idea of avoidance. That's not right. That's not the right way.
Yeah.
Because then it's like more and more isolating. And
I agree. So, and we can dive into that. But and you know, as you guys also know, we do have subscriber content. Yes. Eventually, where like we dive much more heavier and more personally into certain experiences, about our lives and some of the things like that. But I think we like, you know, certain things about communication just sometimes are so personal. But we like to bring to the collective table about all of the elements of communication and realities and exposures that we see, we hope for, we are curious about,
practicing
it because I like me and you have said we really like this is the most time. Like our friendship is developing
as we record,
as this podcast continues and lives, and as on camera. So it's like we're our own little reality TV show too. Not really. No, not reality TV. Should I flip a table? Like
no, the equipment.
No, the equipment.
The stuff that we just figured out how to use. Barely.
Like we're like episode 5.
Yeah.
Like we're in. I think we're getting it, and we haven't had to pay anybody other than just Amazon and our patience. Yes. We had to pay our patience and Amazon.
100%.
With some high noons.
That are still in the back of the car that I forgot about.
I'm so glad they're there because we're totally gonna have one after this.
No, I left it in the other car.
You booger face.
Well, no, because I wasn't gonna do that. I have kind of like a low alcohol tolerance.
Oh, that's right. You just
so it'll make me sick. Like whatever cold I'm fighting off right now.
Plus, my girl here is like, you know, she's like, you know, when you get that tickle in your throat or the whisper in your body, like, I'm about to fuck your world up.
We won't get sick.
Like
that's me right now.
Like that, but I know when my body's like, and it's about to fuck up your whole day,
right?
Possibly multiple days, and you're gonna want to crawl. Okay, get ready. Yeah, like that's what my body does to me.
That's where my husband's at right now.
Yeah. And I feel like, you know, there's always this thing like, babies, such babies. Fuck you. Okay.
That's true though, Loki.
Fuck that. Like if
maybe not every everybody, but
Just like I don't sit there and say suck it up, buttercup, when I know my friends, my female friends are on their period. I'm like, bitch, that shit probably is uncomfortable as fuck. If you tell nope.
yeah.
I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, you're just being a girl. Yeah, right. That's right, bitch. I'm not. Like these are women. That's what they go through. You try having all that kind of shit happen to your body. Same thing with it. What I think some do. Now I would say that some people, man or woman, doesn't matter. Some people, when they are ill,
Princess
it is like, yeah, bridezilla,
princess
in a pea, and fucking queenly crying. And I'm like, if you don't boot and rally and make yourself some fucking soup, or go get yourself some fucking medicine or something else like that. Like, come on now. Mm-hmm. We talk about being responsible for your own happiness. Well, be responsible for your own snot. Seriously, like, come on.
Facts.
Like, I watched my big sister literally be sick for like a month and a half, and I was like, but ultimately I was kind of like, take stronger drugs. Like in my head, I was like,
oh really? Okay.
Take stronger drugs. But I mean, I get it. When you're a mom and you got
you got so much.
You're a mom, you're a wife, and you are like the controller of the crazy and the chaos 90% of the time. Fuck drugs. You're like, I got ibuprofen and a hot toddy, and that is the best I'm gonna do right fucking now. But then I also know then that's why your ass was sick for like a 6-month period, or like a month period, whatever the case may be. But still, yeah, I ultimately think this episode, I think now I have a really clear understanding of how, not a clear understanding, but I have a different version and perspective on like, that's, yeah, okay.
Like the principal thing?
Like that super got me, because I was like, fuck, I've been in so many relationships where I've been like, God, we're having the same fucking issue. And it's not a red flag. It's literally the principle of the problem.
It's not always a red flag. Sometimes it could be, but sometimes you have to step back and try to find a pattern. And unless you can, and it's hard because sometimes life is nuanced and the patterns don't emerge all the time.
Yeah, because people go through, because people they'll take a trauma from 20 years ago and that'll follow them.
Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden
I have a perfect example for that.
Example is like, then you're like, wait, what?
So, like, my husband, this is his second marriage, right? Yeah. I'm his second wife. And he's my first husband. And that's fine. Whatever, doesn't bother me any. But he has, and this is not putting him down if he watches this, we've talked about this, so it's all out in the open, but he's got a lot of baggage from his last wife that came out quite openly in the beginning of our relationship before we were married. And I called it out. I was like, hey, I sense that you are reacting on some old information right now, and that's not me. And so I really would like to talk about it. For instance, and it was partially a little bit of my fault, like habits-wise, but what he was assuming was incorrect, and then the habits just kind of look similar. So I was spending a lot of time on my phone talking to my best friend, who also happens to be my ex, who's a boy. So it was like in the beginning of the relationship, that was pretty rough. And he was like, hey, why are you talking to that guy all the time? And I had told him, it's like, hey, this is my best friend, ride or die. I'm not losing him. We've been hanging out for a decade now. Okay? Right. So if you got a problem with him, you can leave. Sorry.
Right.
Like, because I'm not dropping him. No matter what stage we are in a relationship, that's not happening. Because he's been there for me, I've been there for him.
Right.
So if you really can't get over that, when I promise to God there's nothing happening, sorry, you need to take the time out, figure it out, or we're just done.
So how? Because as our friendship grows, what I've heard that in other friendships, I've been the friend of the friend who has that together.
Yeah.
And like, what's going on? I'm like, first of all, what she's selling, I ain't gonna ever buy. Just so you know, like, I'm never gonna buy her. I don't want her coochie coupon. I don't want, I don't want vagina milkshakes. Like, I don't want that. Okay,
it's different.
Either way,
But it's different.
But it's not to the guy.
Are you not, for real,
ma'am?
You for real?
Not to the dude, what? Because there is.
What do they think you're faking? Like, what's the deal?
First of all, it's hard to fake this. Like, I mean, it's not, but...
Well, but seriously, what's the deal, though? Like, how could that be a problem?
So what I was going to say was, that ain't got shit to do with that relationship. Mm-hmm. It's like, this is an insecurity that you've made public, so thank you. But,
well, absolutely.
But what we're not going to do is, you're not going to drive that into my garden of friendships and connections. Oh, no. And this is probably when people are like, she's so fucking muscle. She's like, you can go.
Well, but it is. And so I told him, I was like, hey, if you need to check my phone, if you need me to check in with you, if you like, I'll take the time down. I'll like tweet. Like we could talk about a little bit of what's that
I
called?
can meet you in the middle.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
can meet you in the middle.
But this jealous or passive aggressive type, because I was catching it.
Oh, and
But he didn't. I don't
remember.
even think he knew he was doing it.
See,
He was
okay.
getting set off.
See,
because
now that's when I think communication. That's where it is. It's like, I'm recognizing and I'm acknowledging in my dialogue to myself that you want some fuck shit, or you are doing something like, what's that? What's that? What's that?
Like, why are you doing this?
Or like, yeah,
let's talk about what's going on here.
Hey, what you mean by that? You know, like calling it out. So like you're like to just bring it back. Like I think yes, here you are very much like a hey, yeah, no, what's that? No, let's like shift it back. Like that's from Will and Grace, by the way.
We gotta untie this knot. What's going on?
Yeah, and you're like no, but I feel like you're about to make a knot, boo. Hold on. Like, that's not the bunny system of happy shoes here, because you're about to knot my shit up, and I ain't tripping over you, so...
Exactly. That's a good one.
You know, that was good, right?
See, that's good.
Yeah, that just came out.
Because I said it, then you said it.
Yeah.
You made it better.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening is, he was like, because I was clear in the beginning, way before we, like, barely even started dating, this is my ride or die, because he pops on my phone all the time, there's nothing going on.
I feel like
don't worry about it.
You say that, like, it's like, I have given you the table of contents, and why are you acting like you can't read all of a sudden?
No, because he got cheated on really bad.
But again, I gave you the table of contents. You took the syllabus and signed up for this class.
But he didn't know me very well. Like, we were just kind of like how you and I didn't know each other very long, but we're hitting it off. It was much of the same.
Oh, okay,
we got married barely a year after we reconnected as people. So it was very fast. And it was coming from a place where I could understand it, and that's why I wasn't mad. I wasn't mad when it happened, but I was like, hey, I see this happening, and I don't want this to continue down that road. We have to stop. What's going on? Can you tell me? Let's talk about what happened with your last wife. Do you have things that you need to, like, get off your chest with that? Are you hurt still? What's wrong? Like, we could do that way.
You legit were like, okay.
Oh, yeah. All the tissue paper out the back.
I'm your partner. Yeah. I'm your new ride or die.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're not about to ride and all in my living room. And you're not about to die all up in my space. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about this so together our environment is ride or die. Not just being like, you can't ride up in here with that and you can die over there with that. Like, you know, like, that's not
I never gave him like a crazy... The only ultimatum was about letting that be okay. Everything else was communicating throughout, like, let's figure it out. And he stopped. He got to the point where we had one pivotal night in Chicago where we were trying to catch a red eye back to California because we weren't out here yet. We were visiting his brother for his birthday. We were coming out. And I noticed that he had checked my Snapchat while he thought I was asleep. And I noticed it because when we got in the car in the cab to go to the airport, I knew I had an unread message when I went to sleep. And I was kind of in and out. And I do remember him picking up my phone, but I didn't know what it was. So when I checked and I saw that it was red, but I didn't read it, I was like, hey, what was that? I know that you... And we're in the Uber, and the Uber driver was probably like fucking popcorn. You know what I mean?
Like ooh, some shit about to go down.
We were being quiet, but I was like, listen, if you're bothered to the point that you think you need to check my phone while I'm asleep, we need to talk. I'm not mad that you went through my phone. I got nothing to hide. You can go through my phone.
Yeah.
But
see, I love that. It's like your action ain't the issue.
No, it's what's behind it. Like, and this sneaky shit that maybe he did in the past, maybe he didn't. I don't know where it comes from. Doesn't matter. But we're not doing that here.
Principle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we talked through it, and he was really ashamed, and he apologized, and he was like, I don't know why I did that. I'll tell you off camera why he did it, but like, he was like, I don't know why I was being so stupid. I'm sorry. I didn't know who this person was, and because it actually wasn't my best friend, it was somebody else. Mm-hmm. Some guy from my shit that I barely keep in contact with. Mm-hmm. He sends me random snaps every now and again. Like, okay, dude, whatever. Right. So it was something super casual and dumb at that. He's just like, who's this fucking dude? And we hashed it out, and I was like, just talk to me. Next time you're feeling some kind of way about that, like, ask me what's going on. Who am I talking to? Like, do you want to see it? I'll share. Like, and that's I'm so open.
In communication, I feel like it's so... Because I'm going to give you the bad side of when I tried to do that, because the the shit version of that story for me is I tried that. So yeah, popcorn. So I was in a relationship with a guy, and I had recently moved, and yada yada yada, and
Okay.
he cheated, and I was like, okay. And I said in the very beginning, if we are in a relationship, and I don't know if this is, I don't know if this is like gay men or men, whatever the case may be. You guys can all make
Fill
your
in the
own,
blank.
fill in the blank whatever you want. But in relationships where there is this type of, I'm not, I think
Exclusivity.
it's not even exclusivity, because there's a level of respect that comes with exclusivity. I feel like you're not respecting your partner when you guys say you're exclusive, and then you, like, when you did cheat, that's a lot more of an issue. But like when nothing's been defined and those conversations have not been had, of like, what do you define as exclusive? What do you define as dating? What do you define as a relationship? How do you see, like, what is your version of a boyfriend relationship? Because these are all new tools that I have. I didn't have those back then, but I now know the reason why my relationship with that person ended the way that it did, and why I stayed in that relationship, is because I didn't have any of those things, and there were other underlying features, like other things that were involved. Which
I have such a good comment for that.
Yeah, no, give it.
Okay, so my brother-in-law, my husband's brother, is gay. He has a partner, and we are all tied up in their little community. So I'm always hanging around with the gays down to Boys Town, and it's phenomenal. They're fantastic for the most part.
I miss
And
them. I haven't seen them.
I can't wait to see how our circles overlap, because I swear to God, you probably know some of them. But
they know me.
Yeah, regardless.
Yeah.
So we were at.
I don't say that disgustingly. I just like I said, I was a chameleon in conversation, and I'm curious to see what that world looks like now that I'm not that person anymore.
It's different. It's different. Yeah. They're getting fed up. My brother-in-law. Yeah.
It's anyway. Like, you get older, you're like, shut up. Like, Queen, take your Taylor Swift ass, and not dogging the superstar, but like, take that shit over there, because I'm a kid of a different era.
You're in a different place.
Like, I'm sorry.
So, to not give like too much crazy detail, we were at this couple's house party. We were on the rooftop. We were like probably 4 bottles of champagne deep, having really good conversations, and something came up. I don't quite remember how it got there, but we were talking about the AIDS community, the AIDS scare, and all the stigma around that, and how scary it is. And I felt kind of ignorant. I was like, they were talking with such fear and anxiety, and from such a dark, like their body language, their face, their voice, their eyes, you could see it. And
I wanted, yeah.
So I know this is good. So I felt ignorant, because I was like, okay, they're obviously talking about something that I don't know enough about, or maybe I misunderstood something, because they were talking about it like it was back in the epidemic, like way back. And I was like, okay, hold on. We have different healthcare. We have different management systems. We've got different drugs in place that help with the symptoms, and like all the medicinal stuff I'm behind on. I don't know everything up to date, but it's way better than it was 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. So why are you talking about it? Like, and mind you, it's a couple, but I don't know what their habits are. And so one of them was very openly talking about, like, God, it's so scary out here. Like, you know what I mean? And his boyfriend partner's sitting right there, and I'm just like, and so I really had to set it out, and I was like, excuse me, sorry, I don't mean to be rude. I don't know you guys that well, and you don't know me that well, but if you're willing to include me in this information, why is this so scary for you? Because we have all these things that are in place. It's much better now. Am I missing something? Educate me. Am I missing a reason why this is still so scary? And then they kind of prattled on about an old tape, an old record. Yeah. And I said, okay. So it seems like there's a missing piece here, because the only way that you can really get that, aside from maybe being careless with sharing drinks or doing things of that nature, drugs and stuff like that, is not being exclusive with your partner. Right. So that was not my perception of them. They have a whole condo that they bought and they live in together. Uh-huh. And I've never seen them like acting any kind of way. They've always been a good couple. So I was like, walk me through that. Hold on. Where's the fear coming from? because they both said they weren't positive, and so I was like, so
Walk me through that.
exactly, and I had to be so careful. I was like, hey, don't tell me any more than you don't want to.
Yeah.
Keep it to yourself. Whatever you gotta keep to
Sure,
yourself.
sure, sure.
I'm not trying to put some divide in your relationship. That's like
I ain't trying to throw up no shit,
you know,
y'all. Like,
but
yeah.
I honestly felt ignorant. I thought I was missing something, and I cracked open this fucking can of shit that they literally said after the fact, weeks later, when we met up at some other point in time. They said, you changed our relationship when you mentioned that, and I was like, oh, because they had a whole bunch of shit they had talked about, and I didn't realize it was probably stuff like that. They didn't talk
Yeah.
about exclusivity. They didn't talk about, but that's a given for me. Are you
But
kidding? That's
again,
scary.
But see, so in here, and this I think would be a good place for us to like wrap up this episode, because I feel like this is something we want to carry on to our bonus content. But like, I feel like we'll dive more into that for our subscribed listeners, because I want to dive into that. I think that's a really good place. But overall, guys, I think today I learned a lot about communication and relationship.
You know what I'm learning is, well, obviously I know my way is not the only way. I know there are other ways out there. And
please share, guys.
Like, sometimes I feel like I understand what other people tend to do.
Yeah.
What the other options might be, but not how like concrete.
Yeah, or what I've seen and then assumed like, oh, they definitely are about to fight. Or like,
yeah, but I'm learning about how I know you. I wouldn't have expected that from you. I would have thought I thought you had your shit put together. You know what I mean? Like that's interesting.
Okay. Just some of the stories that we've talked about already. Like what?
I'm not saying that you're messy. Oh my god. See, that's why people don't like me. I say shit like that off the cuff, and I don't mean it in a bad way. But that was a slam just now, and I didn't mean it that way.
But here's the thing. If I'm that fucking insecure where your perception of how we've engaged makes you be like, that's what I thought. And I'm like, grow up.
Well, but not everyone's grown up. So I'll say some shit like, man, I just thought you had your shit together, but apparently you don't. And
I'm like, and then for me, in our connection, I'm like, girl, you fucking right. I had my shit together. I was a fucking mess. 2023 whooped my ass. 2023 was like a fuck without lube. Like, that's what it was for me.
But you know what? That's this whole dynamic is what makes it so good, though.
Yeah.
Because we can keep our egos out of it, and we can keep our pride out of it,
yeah.
and we can be clear.
And we never have brought it at any point. I don't feel like I've ever been like,
nope, never.
No, we don't talk about this. I've never been but I think also in that it is so, and I feel like guys, it's so important. Get a friend out there who you literally don't have that with, because I swear, ever since we've done this, I literally now when I have conversations, even with my business partner, who we've talked about off camera all the time, we totally have to cut that part out. But we're not going to do that, because that's real talk. But when we talked about it, I have brought that flavor to like our dynamic. I'm like, now that's the flavor, because that's the most confident I've ever felt in being like, no.
That's like a precursor to being a friend with me. I don't fuck with you. If you can't do this with me, we're not friends.
I know, but normally in my chameleon, I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. You get a guest pass, or you get a like a senior citizens discount or something. I don't know, but anyway, I think guys, stay tuned to a lot of what we have in store, because we're never done.
Oh no, never.
We're so never done.
You saw how we like tangented in the tangented. Is that? I don't know if that's a word.
Those are words. Those aren't
we
words.
went on a crazy tangent in the middle of the episode about freckles. So
just know that we will always be going.
And then we'll try to come back. And if we don't, during the subscriber content, we will come back. Because when we watch the footage, it'd be like, oh, that's where we lost it.
That's what she's going to do.
Sorry.
She always says that. But yeah, check out more episodes. Come, eventually watch us and join us and download us and be awesome. And, we'll talk to you guys soon. Join the Still Circle, because we're trying to make one. Join us.
The coffee
like the coffee ring of life. That's us. So join us for our next episode, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm Brandon.
See you soon. I'm Sierra.
Bye, guys.
Bye.